It was one of those nights when I couldn't sleep, so I decided to browse Reddit to pass the time. As I scrolled through various subreddits, a question on r/askreddit caught my eye. What's the most bizarre coincidence you've ever experienced? It instantly piqued my interest because, well, I had a story that was nothing short of mind-blowing. I clicked on the thread and started typing, eager to share my tale with the world. My most bizarre coincidence took place a few years ago when I was traveling through Europe with a group of friends. We were in Rome, and as we roamed the bustling streets, we stumbled upon a quaint cafe. Intrigued by its charm, we decided to stop for a cup of coffee and some pastries. As we chatted and sipped our espressos, I couldn't help but overhear a conversation at the next table. A couple was excitedly discussing their upcoming trip to my hometown, a small, obscure village nestled in the mountains. They were planning to visit the exact village I'd grown up in, a place that was rarely ever mentioned, let alone visited by tourists. I couldn't contain my curiosity, so I leaned over and introduced myself. It turned out that this couple had been researching their family history and had traced their roots back to my very village. They had discovered an old family connection, and this trip was their pilgrimage to learn more about their ancestors. We talked for hours, and the more we shared, the stranger the coincidences became. It turned out that they were staying in the same guest house where my grandparents lived, and the owner of the cafe we were in was a distant relative of mine. We even had mutual acquaintances, despite living worlds apart. But the most astonishing coincidence of all was yet to come. As we delved into their family history, we discovered that one of their ancestors and one of my distant relatives had been close friends in the late 1800s. They had immigrated from our village together, journeyed across the Atlantic, and settled in the same town in the United States. Their families had maintained a connection for generations, and here we were, their descendants, meeting by sheer chance in a Roman cafe. The odds of this meeting were astronomical, and we couldn't stop laughing about the absurdity of it all. We snapped a group photo to commemorate the moment and exchanged contact information, promising to keep in touch. As I finished typing my story on Reddit, I marveled at the incredible twist of fate that had brought me face to face with a family connected by history, a small Italian cafe, and a chance encounter in the heart of Rome. It was a reminder that the world is filled with bizarre coincidences just waiting to be discovered, and sometimes, they're the stories that bring us the most joy and astonishment. Answer 2. Have you ever experienced a coincidence so extraordinary that it left you questioning the very fabric of reality? I have, and it's a story that still baffles me to this day. It all began on a rainy evening in the heart of New York City. I was standing in a crowded subway station, impatiently waiting for the next train. I had just wrapped up a particularly grueling workday, and all I could think about was getting home, curling up on the couch, and escaping into the world of a good book. As the minutes dragged on, the station's overhead speakers crackled to life with an announcement that sent a collective groan through the tired commuters. Our train was delayed indefinitely due to some unspecified technical difficulties. Frustration rippled through the crowd, but there was nothing we could do except wait. With my evening plans now in disarray, I decided to kill time by scrolling through Reddit on my phone. I stumbled upon a thread titled, "What's the most bizarre coincidence you've ever experienced?" Intrigued, I eagerly clicked on it, hoping for some entertaining anecdotes to pass the time. The stories poured in, each one more mind-boggling than the last. There were tales of chance encounters with long-lost friends in far-flung countries, instances of people accidentally dialing the exact phone number they were thinking about, and even a story about a person who had found their doppelganger while browsing a museum. It was a captivating collection of eerie coincidences, but little did I know that my own story was about to join their ranks. As I read through the thread, a memory began to resurface, a memory that had been tucked away in the depths of my mind for years. It was a memory of a peculiar coincidence that had happened to me when I was a child, something so improbable that it had always felt like a dream. I couldn't resist the urge to share my story, so I clicked on the Add a Comment button and began typing. When I was around 10 years old, my family took a vacation to a small coastal town. One evening, while we were walking along the beach, my younger brother found a message in a bottle washed up on the shore. Excited, we uncorked the bottle and pulled out a rolled-up piece of paper. To our amazement, the message was written by a kid around my age who lived on the other side of the country. It turned out that he had thrown the bottle into the ocean during his own family vacation, hundreds of miles away. We exchanged letters for years and eventually became pen pals. But what makes it truly bizarre is that we discovered we were born on the exact same day, down to the minute. I hit the submit button, thinking that my story would get lost among the thousands of comments in the thread. Little did I know that it would lead to a jaw-dropping twist of fate. Hours passed as I continued to scroll through the thread, reading about other people's incredible coincidences. But then, something incredible happened. I received a private message from a Reddit user with a username that sent a shiver down my spine. It was the same username my childhood pen pal had used. The message read, "Is this the same person who found my message in a bottle all those years ago?" My heart pounded in my chest as I replied, confirming my identity. It was indeed the same person I had exchanged letters with as a child, a friend I had lost touch with as life carried us in different directions. We were both astonished that we had randomly crossed paths on Reddit after all these years. We immediately began catching up, reminiscing about our childhood correspondence and the improbable series of events that had brought us back together. It turned out that my childhood pen pal had also posted his own story in the same thread, recalling the message in a bottle that had connected us all those years ago. The odds of us both stumbling upon the same Reddit thread, recognizing each other's stories, and rekindling our friendship were astronomically low. Yet, there we were, chatting away as if no time had passed at all. We exchanged contact information, and over the following weeks, we caught up on each other's lives. It turned out that we had both moved to New York City, mere blocks away from each other. It was an astonishing twist of fate, and we couldn't help but feel that the universe had conspired to reunite us. Our friendship rekindled quickly, and we began spending more and more time together. We revisited our childhood haunts, shared stories of our adventures and misadventures over the years, and marveled at the sheer improbability of our reunion. But the most mind-boggling coincidence of all was yet to come. One evening, as we were leafing through a family photo album, my childhood pen pal froze in his tracks. He pointed to a faded photograph from one of his old family vacations. In the picture, taken on the same beach where he had thrown the message in a bottle all those years ago, there was a young boy standing beside him. It was me. Somehow, our paths had crossed long before we had any inkling of each other's existence. We couldn't believe it. Our lives had been inexplicably intertwined since childhood, separated by thousands of miles and brought back together by the internet and a random Reddit thread. It was a bizarre and beautiful twist of fate that left us both in awe. Today, my childhood pen pal and I are not just friends, but practically family. Our story is a testament to the astonishing power of coincidence and the inexplicable ways in which our lives can intersect. We often marvel at the fact that, if not for that delayed subway train and a chance Reddit thread, we might have never discovered the incredible bond that had always existed between us. So, the next time you encounter a strange coincidence, no matter how bizarre or improbable, remember that the universe has a funny way of bringing people together in the most unexpected of ways. Who knows what incredible twists of fate may be waiting just around the corner, ready to astonish and amaze us all? Answer 3. I've always been a fan of adventure and exploring new places, so when an opportunity to visit Japan came knocking, I didn't hesitate. Little did I know that this journey would lead me to experience one of the most bizarre coincidences of my life. As I boarded the long-haul flight from New York to Tokyo, I couldn't contain my excitement. The plane was nearly full, and I found my seat next to a friendly-looking stranger. We exchanged polite smiles, and I settled in for the 14-hour flight. To pass the time, I brought along a book I'd been eager to read. It was a rather obscure novel, one I'd randomly picked up at a local bookstore just a week before my trip. I hadn't heard anyone mention it or seen any reviews online, which made it all the more intriguing. Several hours into the flight, I noticed my seatmate glancing curiously at my book. His eyes widened with recognition, and he said, "Is that The Lost Constellation by E.H. Tremaine?" I was taken aback. How on earth did he know the title of this obscure book? I confirmed that it was indeed the novel I was reading. He chuckled and said, "I can't believe I'm seeing someone else reading that book. It's a rare find." Curiosity piqued, I struck up a conversation with my seatmate. His name was Oliver, and he explained that he had a special connection to the book. As it turned out, he was not only a fan of the author, E.H. Tremaine, but he had also met the author in person during a book signing event in a small town in Scotland. I couldn't believe my ears. Just the previous week, I had randomly picked up this book without knowing anything about the author, and now, I was sitting next to someone who had met the author in a remote corner of the world. As our conversation continued, it became even more bizarre. Oliver mentioned that he was from a tiny village in Scotland, a place so small that most people had never heard of it. I casually asked the name of the village, expecting it to be just another obscure place. But when Oliver replied, my jaw dropped. He was from the same village where my great-grandparents had lived before immigrating to the United States more than a century ago. The very village my family rarely spoke of, and I had only recently started researching my ancestry. It was an uncanny coincidence. The odds of me sitting next to a stranger on a plane who not only recognized my obscure book but also hailed from the same remote village as my ancestors were astronomical. Our conversation turned into a delightful exchange of stories about our families and the village we both held dear for entirely different reasons. We marveled at the serendipity of our meeting, as if the universe had conspired to bring us together on that very flight. When the plane finally landed in Tokyo, I bid farewell to Oliver with a newfound sense of wonder. What started as a simple conversation about a book had led to an astonishing revelation that connected our lives in ways I could never have imagined. As I ventured into Japan to explore its wonders, I couldn't help but carry with me the memory of that chance encounter on the plane. It was a reminder that even in the vastness of the world, the threads of coincidence can weave together the most unexpected and extraordinary stories, leaving us in awe of the mysteries of life.